Stephen King has become almost synonymous with film adaptations, given the vast number of his books that have been brought to the big screen. However, for every Shining or Shawshank Redemption, there are numerous adaptations that are widely considered failures. One such notable disaster is Dreamcatcher, the 2003 film based on King's novel. Despite a talented team behind the scenes, including director Lawrence Kasdan, The Empire Strikes Back, and screenwriter William Goldman, the film turned out to be a bizarre and unsuccessful experiment that left many, including King himself, shaking their heads. What is Dreamcatcher about? Dreamcatcher follows four childhood friends, Jonesy, Damian Lewis, Beaver, Jason Lee, Pete, Timothy Oliphant, and Henry, Thomas Jane, who have a psychic bond with a boy named Duddits, Donnie Wahlberg. Every year, they head to a remote cabin for a reunion, but things take a horrific turn when they encounter a mysterious man named Rick McCarthy, Eric Keenlyside, who brings an alien infection with him. After Rick's death and the appearance of a grotesque, worm-like creature, the friends find themselves caught in the middle of an alien invasion and the machinations of a power-hungry colonel, Morgan Freeman. It's a premise that blends sci-fi, horror, and a bit of the supernatural, but with so many moving parts, it ends up feeling like a chaotic, disjointed mess rather than a coherent thriller. The creative talent behind the film, Dreamcatcher, was not short on talent. Directed by Lawrence Kasdan, who had previously helmed classics like The Empire Strikes Back and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and with a script co-written by the legendary William Goldman, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, expectations were high. The movie also boasted an impressive cast with stars like Morgan Freeman, Damian Lewis, and Timothy Oliphant. This combination of experienced hands should have resulted in a strong film, but instead, it turned out to be a train wreck. The critics' verdict. When Dreamcatcher was released, critics were quick to point out its flaws. Despite the intriguing premise, the film failed to deliver on its potential. The talented cast seemed to be wasted, as the film shifted from eerie tension to an all-out special effects spectacle. As critic Charles Taylor noted, Dreamcatcher felt like an expensive version of a cheap horror movie. The budget was there, but the execution was not. The film's tonal inconsistencies were a major issue. On one hand, there were attempts to elevate the material with grandiose music and dramatic moments, while on the other, there were utterly absurd scenes, such as a military officer spouting cringeworthy lines about American culture. They drive Chevrolets, shop at Walmart, and never miss an episode of Friends. This type of whiplash between high drama and campy horror only served to confuse audiences, making it difficult to engage with the characters or the story. Why it didn't work. While Dreamcatcher had a unique premise, its biggest flaw was a lack of coherent vision. The film tried to be everything at once, sci-fi, horror, psychological drama, but it never quite succeeded in any one area. The special effects were underwhelming, especially considering the high-budget production, and the movie's bizarre tonal shifts made it hard to take the plot seriously. Even Morgan Freeman, usually a commanding presence, couldn't salvage his character's ridiculous dialogue. One of the most damning criticisms was its failure to properly harness the talent behind the scenes. Kasdan and Goldman, both masters of their craft, seemed ill-suited to navigate the oddities of King's novel, which was itself a mixture of supernatural horror and psychological drama. The result was a movie that tried too hard to be taken seriously, only to fall flat on its face. Stephen King's reaction. King himself has referred to Dreamcatcher as a train wreck. It's easy to understand why, considering how much potential the story had and how little of it was realized. The film's combination of silly plot elements, misplaced humor, and unconvincing visual effects made it feel less like an adaptation of a best-selling Stephen King novel and more like an exploitation B-movie. The legacy of Dreamcatcher. Despite its failure, Dreamcatcher stands as a curious example of early 2000s big-budget horror that didn't quite hit the mark. It also marks an era when filmmakers still had the freedom, or recklessness, to take big creative swings, even if those swings resulted in failures. In today's film landscape, studios tend to play it safer with well-established intellectual properties, but Dreamcatcher remains a testament to a time when filmmakers could go all in on outlandish ideas, even if the end result was, in King's words, a train wreck.